Is your biggest hoop a 5x7? You can still do candy cane lane. I'll show you how. Hey everyone, Kristen Som here, and I'm going to show you how to do the candy cane lane bench pill. Even if your biggest hoop is a 5x7, you can still quilt in the hoop. All the actual designs that are on the CD are already 5x7, but it's the quilting part that will show you how to do. It's totally doable, I promise. Okay, so I already made the block using my regular hoop, but I'm going to just show you as a practice for those that are using a 5x7 hoop. So I'm using felt just because, like I said, I already made the regular block and I don't want to use all the fabrics again, but this will show you how. So you want to start with your fabric. So the regular fabric, you'll still have to watch the regular tutorial, but the regular fabric, I believe it was 6.5 by 10.5. So I cut my felt piece to exactly that size. And then I folded it and found the center. So what you would want to do with your fabric is to fold it in half, both horizontally and vertically, and iron a seam down the center. That would be the easiest way. You could also do it by just finger pressing and then use your water soluble pen to be able to mark the center. Having the center as your guide will be important. All right, let's go ahead and take it to the machine. Hi everyone. So I want to give a visual to those that are using a 5x7 hoop. I'm going to show you how to do it on the embroidery machine, but in the meantime, I want to give you a visual of what that's going to look like. I'm using Sew Up Pro embroidery software, and like I said, this is just for a visual. I'm also going to show it in a larger hoop, just again so that you can get a visual of what it will look like, of what we're going to do when we double hoop. So for the first block, the candy cane lane, the street lamp one, we are going to need a 4x4 and a 4x4 double hoop designed to equal out to 4x8. So I'm using Sew It Pro, you can see up here in the title bar, and I'm just going to go to File, Open, and open up that first design. So I'm using the Christmas 2. It's the Candy Cane Lane one. It's called Christmas 2, and I'm using in 4x4. So when you open it, it automatically opens to a 5x7 hoop. I'm going to change the hoop to a 6x10 just so I can show you how it will look when we have two of the 4x4 designs in there. So up here at this little hoop button, we can adjust the hoop size. And so I'm going to choose this 6x10. All right, so here we have our 4x4 design. It's smack in the middle. And what we're going to do is to first take out steps 3 and 4. So quickly, let me tell you the steps for those that haven't done this before, the quilting in the hoop. So number 1 is the placement stitch for the batting, and we do that right on our stabilizer. And then we lay down our stabilizer on top of that placement stitch, and we stitch number 2, which is the tack down stitch for the batting. So after that, then we trim. And then number 3 is again right on the stabilizer. Number 3 is the placement stitch for our main fabric. And number 4 is the tack down or basting stitch of the main fabric. And then number 5 is the actual quilting design. So since we're going to be double hooping, if you were to do this, actually, whether you do it on the machine or in the quilting software or embroidery software, it's easier to move them around and to get them lined up if you take out this step here, this large one. So that is step 3 and 4. And like I said, it's the placement stitch for the main fabric and the tack down stitch of the main fabric. And you'll see it's easier if we take those out. So to take it out, you just click on it and right click and click delete thread. And again, I'm using Sew It Pro. I'm sure that the steps are pretty similar in whatever embroidery software that you choose. And then again, delete thread, right click, delete thread. So now we just have the placement and the tack down of the batting and the quilting design. So what we can do is we can click on that, the whole thing, and move it. And we're going to move it up, try and center it right in the middle, horizontally and vertically. I'll move it up just a bit. All right, so you can see from this is the vertical line and this is the horizontal line. And you can see that we have, if you click on it, you can see we're right at the center, both horizontally and vertically. So that one is done and ready. So now we're going to go ahead and go to File Merge to bring in that second design. So we're going to bring in the 4x4 again. And you can move it. Actually, so one other little tip is you can hit the control button and move the scroll on your mouse to make the screen wider or bigger for this program. And then you can see it better. All right, so you can move it out of the way, but we again want to take out those steps 3 and 4 because it will make it harder to line it up. So if you go, you might be able to do this on your machine. Excuse my dog. Sorry, somebody must be walking by. You might be able to do this on your machine. I don't know. I haven't been able to do it on my machine. So in software, it's just easier. So now we're at step 6 and 7 since we've already got the first set. And so we're going to just click on it, right click, delete thread, and again, delete thread. We might be getting a delivery. Sorry. All right. So then we just take this one. And again, we're going to move it up to the center, trying to get it right on that center line, both horizontally and vertically. And boom, there we go. All right, so if you click outside of the box, then you can see both of them. So this is what we are going for when we bring it to our embroidery machine. So and I'm going to show you how to do that. Sorry for the messages. I'm going to show you how to do that, but this is the visual so that you can see our goal here. So when you have the whole thing, so if you were to click on each one, it tells you over here on the right, 4x4, and this one also is a 4x4. But if you click outside of the box, then it'll show you the whole thing, and we're at 4x8, and that's what we want. We want a 4x8 quilting design, even though we're going to use a 5x7 hoop. It can be done. It's easy. So you saw how to delete threads. You saw how to move them around. This is on embroidery software. So, but you can, I'll show you how to do it on the embroidery machine. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so once we have the first few steps done, we've got our batting tacked down and trimmed, and we have the placement stitch for our main fabric. So now what you're going to want to do, I'm going to do this one-handed, so bear with me, but you want to take this, your 6x10 fabric, fold it in half. You want that little placement line that we made on the inside, and then put it under your hoop. Trying to make sure it's straight, one-handed, sorry. All right, so here is our center, right? We want that to be just above that placement stitch for our main fabric. All right, so make sure and feel around that it's all centered. Sorry, again, one-handed. All right, so just make sure that that is all centered straight, and then you're going to pull back that bottom layer so that we are only going to stitch on this top part. And notice that this lines right up with our batting. You can feel the batting underneath our fabric. All right, and then it's centered in the hoop. And we are going to go ahead and do, actually I'm going to bypass the tack down. If you want to do the tack down, you could. You could definitely, as long as you make sure to take out the basting stitches before you start the next one. That's up to you. If you choose to bypass it, then you would just tape it in place. But to bypass it the way that I do it, I'm going to look around the camera, sorry. This one, it's got the plus and the minus sign on it. And then go up here to the next step. And that brings us right to the quilting design. So that just is how you bypass the tack down stitch or the basting stitch of the main fabric. But again, you can do it on this first one. You wouldn't want to do it on the second one because you'll already have quilting in the way. So it's better to just bypass it, in my opinion. So anyway, so we are all set and we've got our fabric just right. Like I said, it is centered along that batting line and we've got our fabric all straight and we're ready. And so we're going to go ahead and start the quilting for the top half of the fabric. Okay, so you can see we have the quilting done on the top half of our fabric. We're going to do the bottom half, unhoop it and get your fabric ready or your batting ready, and I'll show you the next steps. Very easy. Okay, we have our first hooping done, the top of our main fabric, and we have our second hooping ready to go. We're going to run through those first few steps and then I will show you how to connect them together. Okay, now that we have the first few steps done and we have our placement stitch for our main fabric, we are going to very simply from here, from our background fabric, we're going to fold it backwards and see that batting right there? We're going to use that as our guide and we are going to line up batting to batting. If you've ever done one of the quilts with me, the candy corn or vintage boardwalk, this is how we did our borders. So it's the same process. You would just line up batting to batting, looking around the camera to make sure I've got it straight. All right, so batting to batting, and then once you have it, bring that fabric down under your needle. Hopefully you don't need one hand to do it, two is better. All right, and then tape these in place and you've got it all lined up for your second hooping. How easy is that? All right, let's go ahead and run it and we'll see how it comes out. All right, once we have this all set to go, I recommend bypassing this basting stitch because it will go around what we just quilted. So go ahead and bypass that and move on to the stitching design. All right, and we're all ready. Okay, and we're done with the quilting. And look, there's no big gap between the two hoops. No one will know that you did it in two hoopings instead of one. And it came out perfectly. I used pink thread so that you could see it well. I used felt instead of regular fabric, and I used tearaway instead of the mesh cutaway. But it is recommended to use obviously mesh cutaway and the fabric that comes in your kit, and whatever thread color you want, but I'm using this as a sample for you. So here's the two hoopings. You can see that we did two different hoopings, but they're perfectly together. All right, and so now I need to just show you how to get the actual design on here. And it's very easy, especially with that center guide. Let's start. Okay, so now we're gonna load the Street Lamp 1 design. And because we quilted, this is gonna be really easy to do. I'll show you. All right, the first, let's click embroidery. The first step is a placement line for our main fabric. So we're gonna stitch that on our stabilizer and it'll show us where to put our quilted fabric down. Okay, so you can see here we went ahead and stitched that placement stitch right on our stabilizer, and we're going to go ahead and line up our fabric that we just quilted. All right, so take your fabric and fold back that bottom edge so that you can see the batting really clearly, and we're just going to line the batting up on this line. Center it. See that? My hand's probably in the way, but the placement line is there, and we're just going to line up the batting against that line. And once that we get that completely straight and centered on that line, then we're going to tape in place, tape all around, because we're not going to use the basting stitch. Instead, we're going to tape to hold it in place. All right, so we have our fabric carefully placed and taped down, and you can feel that we're right at the bottom of our batting here, and we'll see on the placement stitch of the candy cane, you can see it is starting right at the bottom. All right, so I'm not going to go through all the steps. I just wanted to show you how to line it up just right. And you can feel that that candy cane is right at the bottom of our batting, exactly where we should have it. And then we will cut it when we're all done. After the project is completely done, we're going to cut it and we'll have our 1/4 inch seam allowance, and the project will not be floating at all. It's exactly where it should be. So easy. When you quilt it first, it's really easy to line everything up. And that's how to do it with a 5x7 hoop. Pretty cool. Okay, and to do all the other blocks, the street lamps are both smaller, but the other blocks are all a little bit larger. And the process is the same. The only difference is our fabric will be turned. So let's go ahead and run through a quick tutorial on that too. Okay, so we have the first hooping done, and we have the batting and placement ready for the next hooping to get our quilting. So again, fold it in half, get the batting where you can see it peeking out from the edge there, and you can start on this side or on this side. It's not going to matter because this quilting design is not directional, so it's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and start it from the opposite side that we started. Hopefully my hands won't be too much in the way. But again, you're just going to, here, let me do it where you can see it. Line up the batting from the first hooping to the batting of the second hooping. Just like that. Hopefully you can see that. Let's see if I carry this over. So batting from the first hooping lined up with the batting of the second hooping. And then just bring it down under your needle and then tape in place. And remember, you're going to want to bypass the basting stitch because otherwise it'll go right along the edge here and you'll have to pick it out in between your quilting design. So my recommendation is to bypass it. But that's up to you. All right, I'm going to check this and make sure it's straight. And that's so easy to do, right? Like, you just check the batting against the batting, making sure that it's totally straight. And then you're all ready. How perfect is that? 2 hoopings, you would never know. It looks like it was all done in one large hoop. And this just makes me happy. If you saw my post this morning with the technology issue with my microphone, I did a whole tutorial and then found out that my microphone was not working right. So anyway, this makes me happy. This makes it all worth it. Nice and easy. I'll show you the back too in a minute. All right, so we have all of our quilting done. 2 hoopings, looks like 1. And here's what the back looks like. 2 hoopings in 6x4. And we just did that by turning the fabric, nice and easy. So you can see here that I went ahead and I stitched the placement stitch for our fabric. So all you're gonna do, same thing, is you're gonna find your batting and line up that batting with the placement line. Hold on, let me do this not one-handed. Okay, so here it is with your batting lined up against that placement stitch. Just visually center it, pretty easy to do, and then tape in place, and you're all set.